This is a job description of a Java backend developer. I have highlighted lots of IT terms, acronyms, frameworks, and whatnot. So we are going to look at this in depth, and I will also show you a few questions that I would ask a hiring manager about this position, and also what I would ask the candidate. So let's dive right in, shall we? So let's kick off at the day number 6 of the Confidence Infusion program, where we go through a job description. I comment it, I give you some ideas, what you could ask a hiring manager. But what is really important for you guys in this program is to print out this worksheet, or you can also just use it in the Google Drive. But it's important for you to read it before I start commenting on it. So you can also pause this video and do it right now, and then fill in these boxes. So list the IT terms you find, list down the terms you don't really know what do they mean. You can just copy paste if all of them, which could be unfortunate, but better to identify them and fill in the blanks or fill in the knowledge gaps, one could say. And then what would you ask a hiring manager, and what would you ask a candidate? Okay, go through this practice. It's really important because it gets you to a point where you think about these things. Cool. So yeah, let me just go through this job description right now. We are looking at the Java backend engineer. We've changed the name of the company again, obviously, to ECMA. It's a leading dockless bicycle sharing platform. This is not interesting, not important for this purpose. So we are now looking at the key responsibilities. Java backend engineer. And I mean, Java is a backend development language, right? It's sort of obvious that they are looking for a Java backend engineer. This person will be reporting to the Chief Technology Officer. So we know a little about the team setup. We know that there is probably no VP of engineering who would be having these one-on-ones with the developer, as it may be common in some companies. If this could be a smaller team, we can just assume this is a startup. Maybe they have 2, 3, 5 people in the team. We don't know at this point. So let's keep reading. You provide be skilled in Java design pattern, key language features, memory management strategy, Java virtual machine principles. Okay, master the Spring Boot and Spring Cloud. Okay, so some more key terms. So what you guys should do right now is to circle them or highlight if you use a highlighter like I just did. Okay, now we can see some database engines, so NoSQL. And what is interesting about this particular job description is that quite often these technologies are not written correctly. So I mean, just look at this NoSQL. Like, this is not how NoSQL is usually typed. Also with Redis and Memcache, these usually start with uppercase letters. Same with ActiveMQ. I mean, you can also type it this way, but for example, IoT, usually it's not all uppercase. It's like uppercase I, small o, uppercase T, because it's Internet of Things. So the of is lowercase. Same with Mongo. Actually, Mongo should be MongoDB. MySQL is usually my, so M uppercase, Y is lowercase, and then SQL is all uppercase. So I mean, these are just details. I don't want to be too picky, but at the same time, it's good to it's good to behave like a professional. If you would like to attract IT candidate, then it's essential you don't make these mistakes. And it's all obviously questionable, are these mistakes or not? One may not see them as mistakes, as maybe little negligence, but I mean, this is not how I would write it. This is not how a technical person, this is not how the CTO would write it. So as recruiters, we should also do a better job in spelling things out properly. So this is just some overarching topic I would like to highlight across all these terms. Also microservice. So you can see, the correct spelling should be microservice together, according to Google or Grammarly. Now I use both. Okay, so let's move on. Preferably, if being familiar with common technologies used in IoT, Internet of Things, such as, and now a few protocols listed. Master the usage of server-side caching technologies such as Redis and Memcache. Well, these two are quite mainstream. And good knowledge of MQ, so messaging systems or frameworks. So what we can see here, and I'm a little confused to be honest with this job description, because it's like everything in here, even though they are looking for like relatively junior person, like 3 years of experience is not a senior yet. I would say it's a mid-year, so it's an experienced junior, right? But at the same time, they overwhelm this junior with all these technologies, experience with so many frameworks. When I'm looking at this job description, what I see is a mix, because sometimes it feels like they list all these frameworks they use in their company, but at the same time they use way too many of them. So it seems like they add some more. So just to show you what I mean by that. So master the usage of server-side caching technologies. So usually in one project you just use one, it's either Redis or Memcache. Like why would you use both? I mean, you can in complex systems, but yeah, I mean, I would ask the hiring manager, do you really use both? If they do, great. But here it seems like they, instead of describing their technical stack, they just shout out what the candidate could possibly know, right? And there are many more server-side technologies that are similar. So then, why not to list all of them? One could argue. Same with these messaging frameworks. For example, Kafka or RabbitMQ, ZeroMQ. Like, these are alternatives, right? So seems like they are just giving ideas of what the developer should know or could know. Yeah, so that's why I'm a little confused, and you will see this in the questions that we could possibly ask the hiring manager. So let's just scroll down to the IT terms mentioned in the job description above, and they really went a little overboard. As you can see, even on the job description, it's all pretty much, every other word is highlighted. Well, I'm exaggerating a little, but still you can see in this list. So Java programming language, obviously very important. Java virtual machine, I mean, this is a sort of no-brainer, right? Like, those who use Java, they use Java virtual machine. So that's a no-brainer. The knowledge of design patterns. So design patterns are some ways how to approach certain problems. So developers often solve the same issues all over again, right? So they came up with some design patterns, some ways how to solve certain challenges, and those are the design patterns. So it's good to know about them, obviously, because then they don't have to reinvent the wheel. Microservices, it's a type of architecture. So one way is a monolith application, the other way is a microservice application. So one huge application, one huge monolith versus lots of tiny microservices connected with APIs. Backend, well, by now I guess you already know there is backend, front end, and storage as the three major layers. And they also suggest the developer would have experience with Spring framework and Spring Boot, Spring Cloud, and Spring MVC, etc. So these are like configuration systems or tools within the Spring framework. So it's not, I would say, even necessary to list them here. It seems like they use Spring Boot in their project, but yeah, I mean, is it really necessary to write in a job description? Probably not. They listed databases, so MySQL, MongoDB, NoSQL. What else? Was there something else? No. So these are mainstream, both MySQL and MongoDB. So MySQL is relational, MongoDB is non-relational. I'll write it here, relational, and MongoDB, a non-relational database. Non-relational database. So there are some more relational, obviously, and many more non-relational databases, but these two are mainstream, one could say. DB stands for database. IoT, Internet of Things, so all these devices connected, like it could be a fridge, it could be a smart microwave, it could be a smart lamp or whatnot. And they also listed some protocols that developers should have experience with. So I have never been working with these protocols, I don't even know what these protocols are used for. I remember XMPP is for communication. I remember there used to be some service called Jabber, which enabled people to chat together. But these days we have Slack, and who cares about Jabber? These are just some protocols. Same with MQTT, TCP. It's a protocol. They also listed protocols like HTTP and HTTPS. I mean, like, this is just so random. Like, who out of developers doesn't know HTTP and HTTPS? Like, obviously there could be some more advanced things like how to handle security in HTTPS, but this should be expanded if this is such a strong requirement. It should be expanded in the job description. Why? Otherwise, I would just cut it. Framework Netty, server-side cache. So actually, by the way, the framework Netty is used for some high load, high intensity applications. So again, it's good to know if they use it or not, because from what I remember, it was not clear in the job description if they really use Netty. Where was it? Netty. I cannot see it. Where was it? Here. So it's preferable having hands-on experience with the Netty framework. So seems like I don't know. We would need to ask the hiring manager, obviously. Server side means on the backend side, on the server. Cache is a storage, so it's like a database, like very very fast, very responsive database. It's not like MySQL, it's not like MongoDB. It's like super fast database or super fast storage. And Redis or Memcache are two different cache systems. And then messaging queues, MQ, messaging queue, RabbitMQ, ZeroMQ, ActiveMQ, like these are different tools, different products that enable to handle distributed systems and how they exchange data between them. And Kafka is for data streaming, which you can also see this on the mind map, which reminds me, where's the mind map? Let me open it up here. If I look at the Java landscape, for example, we have Kafka somewhere here in data processing and streaming on top left. Hadoop is an alternative. So for you as a recruiter, it's good to know what are the alternatives, because then you can ask a developer, hey, have you been using Hadoop? Do you know the principles? Do you know what Hadoop is used for? And then, it's not as difficult to learn about Kafka if the person has already been working with one of the tools. Same for I know some of these frameworks. I'm just looking at some of these frameworks here on top right. So Spring, which is on fire now, or Grails or Spark, right? Like these are the frameworks. So if a developer knows one, they can learn another framework relatively easily. It's obviously easier than shifting to completely different language, like I don't know, JavaScript, and using another framework within the other language. All right, but let's go back to the job description. Linux was the last IT term, which is an operating system. Yeah, they expect the developer to have experience with Linux, but like again, why to list it in the job description? This is a developer. He will not be setting up servers. He will not be maintaining stuff. So I would just leave it out. Usually developers have some knowledge of Linux. They can run a few commands here and there, so they should be good anyway. And now, based on what we've seen really a mixed job description with lots of different keywords, different terms, different frameworks. How do we extract what is most important? So I would like to focus on the technical stack, like what do they really use in their company? Not like all these RabbitMQ, ZeroMQ, ActiveMQ, like who cares about this list? I want to know what exactly do they use in the company. So I would like to ask this question first. Can you please describe your existing technical stack? And I would also like to ask about the NoSQL database, because they listed a few databases, but what exactly, which one do they use? Tell me. I would also ask which of the skills or expectations, as we could call them, are must-have. They write preferable, but it's just so vague. And imagine these days, developers and people in general just open up text and they don't read it, right? Like who would read in a job description the whole sentences? Be skilled in Java, design pattern, key language features, memory management strategy, master the Spring Boot, Spring Cloud. Like who would do this? What do people do is they just look through the keywords. They try to skim through the text really quickly and see if this is a good fit. So what I would recommend is to extract those preferable things and just throw it away completely, or just have it somewhere on the bottom possibly. But it's just waste of space, energy, and mental energy of those IT candidates who need to read it. How big is the team right now is the third question I would ask. It seems like the team is fairly small since the developer will report to the CTO. So this is why I would ask this question. What's your attitude towards the educational level? The reason I'm asking because they ask for a bachelor's degree. So what if we bring a developer who doesn't have any degree? Would you still hire him? What challenges can the developer expect at work? Can we say something about the load, about how many users use it, about the data stored, etc.? Like what are the challenges the developer will face in the first 30 days or 3 months? I would ask the hiring manager if they can afford a very senior person who matches all these requirements, because there are quite a lot of requirements. And maybe they expect a junior/mid-year person, but on the other hand, they expect to have all this experience, which somehow doesn't match, right? So if they really want the person who has all these experiences with MQ systems and Linux and what else? Databases, relational, non-relational, and also different ports, and security, and high scalability, and design, and software architecture, and design patterns, and everything, and the person is really great, very experienced, well then they should be prepared to pay a salary for someone who's been doing it for 10 years, a senior person. Do you expect this developer will also contribute as a senior Java architect? The reason why I would ask, because they sort of, at least it seems like they expect the person would be designing the solution. So that's why I asked. Okay, and now what I would ask the candidate? Well, I would first ask to tell me about the Spring-based application that the person has developed, and to walk me through the steps, how he or she used the framework, and possibly even how he or she designed this application. If the candidate has used any NoSQL database in the previous project, what databases has he used, relational or non-relational, or both, and what cache systems has he used? Would you enjoy working for a product-centric company? This is important because the company seems to be working on one project only. So for a developer, this is an important information. He or she will be working for this one company for 2-3 years or more on one product, which not everyone really likes, right? In an agency, they like to change projects every few months. The question number 4 here. Have you designed a system from scratch that scaled? And what was its peak? What load was it able to handle? And what technologies have you used to enable this application to handle such a huge load? Have you ever worked with protocols such as MQTT or XMPP? Why, where, what was the purpose, what was the project about? Even though you may not know about the MQTT or XMPP protocol, like I don't know much about them, so but still you can just ask this question, open-ended question. But anyway, I think it's not even important for the hiring manager. Imagine this company has one huge monolith application. How would you go about splitting it into microservices? Should there be into? Yes, into microservices. Splitting into microservices. And here I would be really curious to learn more about the candidate's experience with microservices and recommendations. And you can see how he or she thinks about the software architecture based on this question. So that's why it's quite a good one. Okay, so I walked you through all these IT terms, just like really briefly explained. But below this video, you will also have another video where I talk about Java as a language and all these frameworks. So you can also watch that one. And I encourage you to write down a few of your questions. What would you ask the hiring manager and the candidate? Because at the end of the day, it's all about practice and learning and going through the hassle of learning about the terms and how to apply them while you are at work. All right, so I'll wrap it up here. I hope this has been useful. This is day number 6 of the Confidence Infusion program, and I really hope your confidence is slowly going through the roof. Have a wonderful day, everyone.